Citroën doesn't do normal cars anymore. The C3 hatchback is now a crossover, as is the C4 and EC4 electric car. And the same goes for this, the C5 Aircross Hybrid. It's the company's latest PHEV, and it's based on the same platform as the Peugeot 3008 and Vauxhall Grandland X. So it looks like a Citroën, but does it drive like one? And should you buy this version over the non-electrified C5 Aircross? All will be revealed, but before we get into the review, remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome reviews just like this one. It's so easy to criticise crossovers because they're so damn boring. But Citroën doesn't do boring. It's very good at breathing a lease of life into something that's relatively mundane. And the C5 Aircross is no exception. While it's not as funky as the original C4 Cactus, you still have that pocket-like design at the base of the car and also around the sides. Overall, though, it's quite a complicated look. This front end is made up of 3 different tiers. At the top, you've got the badge and also the daytime running light LEDs. On the second tier, we've got the headlights, which are halogen, by the way, not LEDs. And then on the bottom, we've got more vents. It's not pretty, but it's not ugly. I like it. As this is a PHEV, you've got to store the batteries somewhere, and on the C5 Aircross Hybrid, they're located in the back. And that means boot space takes a bit of a hit. You've got 600 litres back here, which unfortunately is 180 litres less than the regular version of the C5 Aircross. Still, it's not that much of a problem because not only is the boot still massive, there's actually a sliding rear bench, so you can move it forward a little bit to open up a bit more room. Let's talk numbers. The C5 Aircross Hybrid starts at £34,360, and for that you'll get dual zone climate control, an 8-inch infotainment system, and a sat-nav system that both monitors traffic and will beep at you every time you come across a speed camera. Pay an extra £1,500 though, and you get keyless start, 19-inch wheels, and also an automatically operated boot lid. The model that we've got here is fitted with the part leather interior, and it really is such a lovely place to be, particularly sitting in these seats. They are so comfortable and you just sink into them. There's even a bit of leather on the dashboard, which is very fancy. There's also a nice mix of touch controls and physical buttons. So there's a physical button for some of the heating elements, and there's an audio dial, which I absolutely love. But some of the shortcuts for the sat-nav system are all done through touch controls. The steering wheel, you've also got some buttons on here, and while overly complicated steering wheels can be a bit annoying, I feel like this one might be just a little bit basic. And it's kind of oddly laid out. You've got volume controls on the left-hand side and then track controls on the right, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Sure, you want everything with audio to be on one side of the wheel. Speaking of peculiar layouts, the same can be said for the infotainment screen and the virtual cockpit. Now, a lot of cars come with a home screen. You go there and you can access everything from your music to Apple CarPlay to the vehicle settings. But on the Citroën, you've got a home button, and then you can choose between 3 different options, which are Citroën's connected apps, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Now, if you go into the bottom right-hand corner, you can access the built-in apps where there's only one, and it's how the hybrid energy is being distributed. But there's also a physical button for that down in the bottom left-hand corner of the dashboard. There's also a touch button over here for my media and the climate controls, but the overall layout just feels a little bit confusing, and everything's located in places that you wouldn't really expect them to be. Also, while the virtual cockpit is intuitively laid out, there's a little bit of lag between your inputs and what appears on the screen. So if I cycle through the driving modes, there just seems to be an ever so slight delay. It's not as sharp as the systems that you get in German rivals. In terms of storage, we've actually got a wireless phone charger down here in the center console, and we've got both a USB charger and also a 12-volt port. A bit further back, there's a small little tray which is perfect for storing the car keys in, 2 cup holders, and the biggest bin I have ever seen. If I pop it open, we've got a little tray, which I'll pop out, but just look how much storage we've got in there. I'm going to put in my entire arm can fit down to the bottom of this bin. So if you're buying this for your family, just be careful you don't lose your children down there. The first thing you notice when you get in the back is the seating position. You're sat so upright that you almost feel like you're leaning forwards. It doesn't feel too bad just sitting here stationary, but it might feel a bit odd on a long journey. The good news is, though, is that these seats are super comfortable, and you've actually got 3 proper chairs back here, so whoever sits in the middle is going to be just as comfy as where I'm sitting or the person on the left. Legroom isn't too bad, seats in my position, and again, I've got quite a bit of space to play with, and headroom's pretty good too, actually. While there's a bit of bodywork that comes down here, I think if you're over 6 foot, you should have quite a bit of room to play with. So now we're out on the road, let's talk about this hybrid system. We've got a 1.6 litre turbocharged petrol engine that's hooked up to a front-mounted electric motor. And together they produce 222 brake horsepower. Now that's good enough for a 0 to 60 of 8.7 seconds, and that doesn't actually sound all that great. However, with things like electric cars and hybrid cars, the impressive stat is how it goes from 0 to 30, and that's really the one that you care about. So while it might take its time to get up to 60, you'll have plenty of time on a slip road going up to motorway speeds. This thing is really nippy away from a set of traffic lights. It's a really quick car, surprisingly so. And because all of that power is sent to the front wheels, you can actually get the traction control to kick in quite easily. Another thing that surprised me actually is just how quickly it gathers pace at speed as well, particularly when you're in hybrid mode. So I was cruising along the motorway yesterday, it was hammering with rain, and everyone was doing about 60 miles an hour, but I found a bit of grip, I was able to overtake somebody, and you're very quickly able to get up to 70 miles an hour. It's just got a lot more punch than I was anticipating. And I know what you're probably thinking, but you don't buy a plug-in hybrid for its performance. And you're right, you get it for its fuel economy and its all-electric range. So let's start things off with the latter. If you charge this thing up to 100%, you'll be able to go 34 miles on electric-only power. That's according to Citroën anyway. When I've been testing this, it seems closer to 16 to 20 on mixed driving. Which isn't bad because you can always rely on the petrol motor to kick in and carry you on from there. Now, if you connect this up to a relatively slow 7 kilowatt charger, you'll actually be able to get 100% charge in about 2 hours, which isn't bad if you're able to top up at home and you've got one of those wall boxes. MPG is claimed all the way at over 200, but we've not been able to really get that, but we have comfortably had over 100 MPG. So you are getting something that's going to be much more frugal than just a regular petrol C5 Aircross. But I know the big question here is, does it drive like a Citroën? And of course it does. It is one of the most comfortable SUVs I've ever been in. It has been like driving around in a lounge in here. It's so quiet, comfortable. I very rarely hear the engine. Only when you really put your foot down can you hear it whirring away. But half the time it just sounds like it's using the electric motor, even when it's not. The ride is sublime. No matter which road I'm on, it just seems to absorb everything that gets thrown at it. We even did a little bit of soft-roading in it. This is December, the weather is dreadful. Most of the car parks in this area are ultra muddy and have got massive, massive pits in them. But this thing just treated it like a slightly bumpy road. There was no problem with it whatsoever. Your back would have been broken in pretty much anything else. There is some quirks to the ride though. So I've noticed in tight corners that if you put your foot down, you get a little bit of a shudder through the body. It sometimes just has a little bit of a shimmy, and it's incredibly rare, but the car doesn't always sound like it's happy when it's doing so. While I'm stuck in a traffic jam, I'm going to talk about the paddles behind the steering wheel, because at first I thought they were for energy recovery, because in some hybrids and fully electric cars, they'll come with paddles. You pull on the right, it'll increase energy regen. If you pull on the left, it'll decrease it. But no, in the Aircross hybrid, they are in fact to change gears. And why I find that funny is A, they're bigger than the paddles that you get on an Audi R8. They are massive and are very inviting to go and start up and down shifting yourself. But B, the car is not really the sort of car that you would want to go out and drive manually. And I was flicking around with them on a road, and because the car is so quiet, it was actually difficult to tell that I was changing gear manually. So it drives like a Citroën, but so does a regular C5 Aircross. So why should you go for the hybrid? Well, the main thing is that MPG and also the electric only mileage. It is a little bit more expensive than the regular C5 Aircross, but I really recommend it, particularly as even the entry-level models aren't exactly poverty spec. You're getting a lot of kit as standard. And if I were to go out and get a C5 Aircross hybrid, I'd actually go for the Plus trim, because you get a few more luxuries and it's only £1,500 more. And if you're spreading that over, 48 months, you're not really going to be able to tell the difference. So to definitively answer the question, yes, I would have a C5 Aircross hybrid over the regular model, and I would get the top spec model. It just seems like such a great car if you've got a family and you're looking to either lower your carbon footprint or just save some money on the fuel bills. It's a brilliant car, very comfortable. It's got a few quirks, but that's what a Citroën is, isn't it?